Okay, fifth grade, we are jumping in to lesson 2 of module 3 and continuing our understanding of multiplying fractions. And Eureka loves to throw at us all kinds of different strategies. Today they're going to throw a couple strategies at us. Again, I will expose you to these strategies, but in the end we are going to be using the multiplication strategy as our main strategy. But let's look at how we could use a number line when it comes to finding the value. So just to review, remember yesterday we talked about and looked at arrays and showed that visual of how to find a fraction of something. So you can see that we have a fraction of 3. And we saw yesterday that it kind of relates to our multiplication facts. So we've got 1/3 of 3. So how do we use a number line to show 1/3 of 3? So let's think about this. I have a number line and I can see I've got 0, 1, 2, 3. And I can see, so this is representing that I have my 3. That's my number right here, right? 3. And then 1/3. And you notice that each section they broke into 3 parts. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So those are broken into thirds. So when I look at a number line and I think about this, if I want to look at and if I want to highlight 1/3, I want to make sure in each section I'm highlighting that fraction amount of 1/3. So I would highlight 1/3 in this section here, 1/3 in this section, 1/3 in this section, and I would say to myself, if each of these little amounts that I highlighted, if each of these are showing 1/3 of something, that shows 1/3, that shows 1/3, and that shows 1/3, I would have to kind of add them all together to figure out how much that equals. So if I'd add 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3, I would get 3/3, which is the same as 1, okay? Another way to think about this is if I had those 3 dots like we did last time, and if we were to break our dots into thirds by drawing a line, and I were to ask you how much is 1 out of those 3 dots, hopefully you would say 1. It's worth 1. So 1/3 of 3 is 1. Okay, looking down here in this section right here, we're going to be using a number, what do we call these? Oh my goodness, a tape diagram. There we go. We're going to be using a tape diagram. I have to admit, tape diagrams really confused me last year, but now I kind of think they're a really helpful tool. So let's look at this. We have 1/3 of 18. So in this tape diagram, if I'm breaking this up into thirds, what is it that I'm breaking into thirds? Okay, so what's the whole number that we're looking at? We're looking at 18. So this whole tape diagram has to represent 18. That means that 3 units, boom, 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 1, 2, 3, all together equal a total of 18. So we always know up here, when we write this number, this should show kind of like our total up here, okay? So our total is going to equal 18. So if I think about that, I could kind of think about using division, right? Each one of these amounts, I'm trying to figure out how much this 1 unit is equal to. Now you might be saying right away, well, Mr. Shaver, I know that if I were to count by 6s, 1, 6 plus 6 plus 6, that this would equal, each of these sections would equal 6, and you are correct. That is true. But I also want you to think of this as a fraction. Not only could this be, we could say 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 18, and I could say that this one little section here equals 6. I could also think of this in fractional pieces. okay? So for example, this same little piece is the same as 18 thirds. So think about that for just a second. This is showing 18 divided by 3. So the same thing I could say about this piece is each one of these pieces is worth 18 thirds, which we know if I were to do my in and out, that 18 thirds would equal 6 because 18 divided by 3 is going to equal 6. So I want to show you that each of these pieces is 18 thirds or 6. Okay, so we are going to see today in the lesson that we can write things sometimes as a fraction, and sometimes we're able to write them as a whole number. So you need to have that ability and that flexibility to see that the number 18 could be written as 18 thirds if we're breaking it into 3 pieces, which is equal to or the same as 6 plus 6 plus 6. Okay, so this unknown or mystery unit is equal to 18 thirds or 6, right? They equal the same. So let's go down here and kind of apply that knowledge to these numbers here. It says find each value, draw a tape diagram, and show your work. Write your answer as a whole number when possible, okay? So they really want us to kind of write our answer as a whole number. So we're going to start with our tape diagram. So I'm going to go over here, might draw my long tape diagram. And I know that I'm looking at 40. They want me to find 3/8 of 40. So when I look at this number 40, this is what my whole tape diagram becomes. This whole tape diagram is worth 40, right? And then I'm going to look at my fraction, and I'm going to pay attention to my denominator, because my denominator is going to tell me how many pieces to cut the tape diagram into. So how many pieces should I be cutting this into? I'm going to cut it into 8 equal pieces. So I like to start by cutting it in half first, and then I'm going to cut those in half so that I have 4 pieces. And then I'm going to cut my fourths in half to have 8 pieces. Okay, so now I have these 8 pieces, and each of these pieces is worth 40/8. Okay, 40 divided by 8. So I want to look at how many of those 8 pieces. I want to look at 3 of the 8 pieces, and my goal is to try to figure out how much are 3 pieces or 3/8 of 40. Now, I told you before that we could write and we could say that each one of these little units is worth 40/8. We could write it as a fraction, right? And in this case, because it says whenever possible, we're going to write it as a whole number whenever possible. So let's kind of break this down. We have 8 units. And we know that those 8 units equal a total of 40. We have all of that information up here. We have 8 units, they equal a total of 40. And so when I look at 1 unit, I'm going to look just at 1 unit. We know that 1 unit equals 40 divided by 8, or 40/8, because we took 40 and divided it by 8. What does 40/8 equal? So 40 divided by 8 equals the same as what? Hopefully you're saying 5, right? 5 times 8 equals 40. So what we're saying here is that each one of these is equal to 40/8 or the whole number 5. Okay, so now we're asking this question. How much are 3/8 of this 40 worth? So we're looking at these 3 pieces. And hopefully you're saying, well, 3 units are equal to 3 times 5, which is 15, okay? So we can see 5, 10, 15, okay? All right, let's do our next one. Now our next one, this is where you're gonna see sometimes we're gonna use fractions, because this one was nice because when we divided it, it was an equal number and we could use the whole number. But on this next one, it's not gonna necessarily be that way. We have 5/6 of 20. So we're gonna draw our tape diagram. Our tape diagram is going to represent what? In these numbers, what part of it is gonna be represented? What does this equal? Hopefully you're saying it equals our total, and our total is 20. So this is equal to 20. How do I know how many parts to break this into? And hopefully you're saying, oh, we look at the denominator. Okay, so my denominator is saying I need to break this into 6 equal parts. So I'm going to break it in half first, and then I'm going to make this side 3 and this side 3. Okay, now, in our last one, it was pretty easy because we said 40 divided by 8. And that gave us, we knew that was a math fact. 40 divided by 8 is 5. But if we look at this one, we have 6 units. That's what we broke it into. And we know that the 6 units equal 20. But now I'm going to think about how much one of those units is. What I'm trying to figure out, I forgot this part, we have to figure out 5/6 of 20. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is our unknown part. Forgot to write that. This is our question mark part. Like what are 5/6 equal to? Okay, so let's come over here and we first start by asking ourselves, well, how much is 1 unit worth? And this is where, if I go 20 divided by 6, it's not going to be a whole number. So for this, we're going to actually keep it like a fraction. So we're going to say that 1 unit is worth 26ths. Now, could I do in and out and figure out what the mixed number is? I could, but in this case, that's not really going to necessarily benefit me, okay? So we have this right here, and then we're going to ask ourselves, so if I am multiplying by 5, right, because I need to figure out what 5 units are, it's like taking the 5 and multiplying it times 20/6. Now you're saying, well, what does that mean, Mrs. Shaver? Well, think about this. It's like adding the numerator together 5 times, 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20. So if I do that, what am I going to get? And you can essentially see we're going to multiply straight across. 5 times 20 is how much? Hopefully you're saying 100. And what's our denominator? 6. Okay. Now, I don't know. This is where the tape diagram, I was like, oh my word, I don't understand it. It's so confusing to me. But if we just kind of think through this for a second and don't panic. So we're saying that each one of these pieces is worth 20/6, right? Now I'm going to write that in here just to kind of show you, because you might still be like, oh, I don't know, I don't understand. Sometimes we just kind of have to trust our gut or follow our steps to make it make sense, okay? So this was our unknown part, our question mark part. And we figured out that if I add these 5 pieces together, that it's going to be equal to 100/6. Okay, so these 5 pieces equal 106. But I kind of was very confused when I saw tape diagrams because I didn't understand how these fractions related to the 20 up here. But look at, guys, if we were to add all of this together, this whole thing should be able to equal to 20, correct? So if I were to add 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, and 120, this entire tape diagram is going to equal 120/6. Now, if I were to go and do in and out, which I'm going to go up here and I'm going to do, we don't have to do this. I'm just proving to you that this equals 20. So look what happens if I divide by 6 and I say 6 goes into 12 2 times. I get 0, bring down my 0. How many times will 6 go into 0? It will go into it 0 times. So look at 20 over 6 together 6 times actually equals 20. It ends up at being 120 over 6. Okay? So just follow these steps and you'll do